This month marks 1 year since the National Trust for Historic Preservation declared the Rio Vista farm in Socorro a national treasure. The contributions from Mexican laborers known as braceros is in part what landed the farm this recognition. That's in tonight's Hispanic Heritage Month special assignment.
When we entered World War II, agricultural employers began to tell the government, all these men have gone off to war, we need workers for the fields.
The year was 1942.
Mexico was just coming out of the Great Depression, and there were not enough jobs, the pay was very low.
By word of mouth, small towns in Mexico began hearing about the start of the Bracero program. The binational agreement recruited thousands of men to work in agriculture in the U.S.
The government would call the men soldiers of the field.
Dr. Yolanda Chavez Leiva has conducted oral histories with the remaining braceros in the borderland.
That they traveled from Chihuahua to Juarez in cattle cars standing.
The braceros journeyed from all over Mexico through train. Their destination was to the border. That's where they waited for their name to be called into the United States. Francisco Ubiña recalls his arrival as a bracero.
He
says the men would stay near the railroad tracks, many times sleeping on dirt.
They talk about eating newspaper just to be full, because you never knew how long they were going to be there. They were processing thousands of men.
As soon as the men crossed the border, they were taken to processing centers. Francisco Ubiña and Juan Moncayo were processed at the Rio Vista farm in Socorro. Moncayo says the white adobe buildings in Socorro were packed with aspiring workers. Rio Vista is where the braceros would receive their contracts, sleep a few nights, and get their medical exams to make sure they were healthy enough to work. Ubiña says Rio Vista is also where the men had to take off their clothes and be fumigated as a group. Moncayo says he worked in Socorro picking cotton, and so did Ubiña for 6 years. Ubiña says you pick the cotton from the bolls using 3 fingers and twist it out. That labor included back-breaking work from the early morning hours until the evening. Their paycheck depended on how many pounds of cotton was picked.
And many of them ended the bracero program with back injuries because of the short hoe. It's illegal now to use it.
Leiva says braceros developed a good work relationship with their bosses, which is what led up to their contract getting renewed season after season. Historians say about 5 million contracts were awarded up until 1964. That's when the program came to an end by pressure from the U.S. labor unions.
In the 50s and 60s, you also see some negative reaction to it by U.S. labor unions, saying that the bracero program is bringing down wages.
Their contributions on the field and the economy paid off for many of the braceros. They were able to send money to their families. And up until this day, daughters like Maggie Ubiña Ronquillo are thankful for their father's sacrifices.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very.
So I would just want people to ask the elders, to ask the abuelitas, the abuelitos, did we have any braceros? So that they would know that they were part of this really important history.
With photojournalist Rodolfo Reyes, I'm Adriana Candelaria. And next week, we're exploring the origin of the piñata and how this newspaper craft comes to life. Join us next week on KFOX 14 News at 9.